The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity live at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate 9th and P. A lot of Big Red faithful here. There's red beers, there's orange beers, there's margaritas, there's fuzzy navels, there's whiskey, and there's hope. Nebraska try to get that elusive sixth win. We'll talk about it. We will shout out Elijah's intelligence when it comes to picking the right games and the right winners this weekend. How about Big Red basketball? How about them fighting Freds? Wow. What a statement last night. And Signetti looks pissed, and he's up 7-0. 489-1240, 489-1240 to get in. 800-825-5865. As we invite you down here to the Single Barrel. One more rodeo, one last time for the regular season for Nebraska football against Wisconsin. As we're here noon to 2, and then we'll be right back here for Real Red Reaction on KFOR, KFORnow.com. As we'll talk about it. We'll talk through it. We'll either try and soothe you or celebrate with you a Nebraska victory. Or Elijah, in this series, it has been Wisconsin's get-right game by a touchdown in regulation, in overtime, or in a comeback fashion. When you look back 10 years ago with Tommy Armstrong and company up 17-3, about 9 minutes left in that second quarter, and then Melvin Gordon went off. So the bugaboo has been Wisconsin. You get him here. 2 years ago, you're up 2 touchdowns on an anemic offense, and they beat you 15-14. And you're just we've seen a lot. We have seen a lot of November ball games. We've seen a lot of November how did that happen moments. We've seen a lot of close moments for Nebraska as Ohio State has just tied it. Mr. Kraynak is here. So it's huge. It's big, and morale was a topic yesterday. I kind of flipped my pick to Wisconsin today, but I was all wet about really honestly what Creighton and Nebraska basketball were going to be about, man. And you nailed that. Have you shifted your thoughts, or you still think this is a dogfight today?
Oh, it's a dogfight today. That's a guarantee. But everything that I know about both Wisconsin and Nebraska this year tells me this is going to be a close ball game. It's going to be a game that's a game in the fourth quarter. And I haven't seen anything from Nebraska this year that proves to me that they're going to come out on top in a close ball game late, especially given the losing streak that you're on, what we can infer about morale in the team. I mean, I don't think there's reason to believe that if this game is a close, say, tie ball game, 3-point game in the fourth quarter, that Nebraska isn't going to have that, oh no, here we go again type mentality. Maybe senior day can flip it. We talked with Gary Barnett on Thursday. He thinks the emotions and the effect of senior day might be a little bit overrated, kind of that classic, well, yeah, you feel that pregame, but then once you run out the tunnel and once it's game on, it's just another game. Like, that's maybe the wild card here is senior day enough of a factor for Nebraska to flip them in a close ball game? But based on what I know about Nebraska and based on, I guess, what we can infer about the mentality of the team by some of the happenings this week, what Matt Rule sounded like, all this drama and the rumors surrounding Malachi Coleman, I got concerns about what Nebraska is going to do if this is a close ball game. Like, I don't have reason to believe that narrative is going to flip.
Kraynak, can you muster up some belief? Good to see you, partner.
I mean, you kind of have to at this point. Pretty interesting on the way down. I'm bringing my son. He's 11, right? He's accomplished many things in these 11 years, right? Like, he's gone to school. He's learned how to, get out of diapers, feed himself.
He's driven Schmidt home from the bar.
He's right. It's different county rules where I live. He knows how to cook eggs. He competes in baseball. He has accomplished so many things And during that entire stretch of a budding human being turning into a young man, turning into a man, he has never seen Wisconsin lose to Nebraska, ever. Like, let's think about that, right? Like, it's like very capable human beings who can kind of almost take care of themselves. Have not like
they don't know what a win against whiskey is.
It's crazy. It's really crazy to think about that. And
that feels like
he was mentioning that. He's just like, God, it's never. He's like, he literally said, he's like, I've been waiting for this my whole life, and like it just really hit me of just like, no, literally, yeah, like your entire the curse that Wisconsin somehow has on Nebraska, probably related to the Barry Alvarez taking your blueprint and using it against you. It's probably related to that if you believe in those sorts of things. It's got to end, man. And if it's ever going to end, it's got to be today.
That kind of feels like some stat you hear about the Detroit Lions, right? I know they've kind of flipped the narrative, but I've been a Detroit Lions fan since I was born. I haven't seen some basic thing that you'd expect to see. Like that's what this streak has reached against Wisconsin, where it's just absurd. I mean, the amount of opportunities you've had to win games, there's been some that haven't been close, but there's been a handful during that stretch where it's like, how'd you lose that one? 15-14 2 years ago, where you have that
the
Gaglione one.
The Gaglione, the mulligan, where he drills a 46-yarder but doinks a 39-yarder, and all you got to do is get a first down in 2015, and you can't do it. Yeah. The time that Betts or Westerkamp were, that's assault, brother, at the goal line in overtime. You know, that harkens back. I mean, the last time Nebraska scored in overtime, Scott Frost was finding the end zone against Missouri.
And listen, I don't like any of Nebraska's rivals or whatever, but you can have a certain respect level. I've always respected Wisconsin for what is missing at Nebraska, and that you hope somehow gets reinstilled in this program. But it is just a diabolical belief that it's going to happen, right? Like
partially because of who they've been playing.
Like right? Well, but you haven't seen Wisconsin. At least I haven't in my lifetime. I have not seen Wisconsin look like they're about to fold,
they don't fold against Nebraska. But I mean, last weekend, case in point, they had no business after getting annihilated by Iowa and Bama this year to have one last gasp in them, and they did, and they scared Oregon.
And so part of what's missing, so it's that, and it's having dudes that lead that charge, right? Production aside, production's obviously a part of it, but mentality-wise, where is the equivalent of a Tommy Frazier, of an Amir Abdullah?
They're special guys,
right?
Talent and mentality.
Of a Rex Burkhead. You know, and Nebraska had that run with Burkhead and with Abdullah, and they just happened to play running back. But in terms of mentality, the leadership of sort of like true commitment to their craft, true 100% play every single play, right? Like Nebraska was lucky to have that back-to-back. Who are those guys on this roster? Who are the guys on this roster that are those kinds of leaders? And same with on defense too. It doesn't matter the position. Think about, like, you love Ty Robinson, you love how hard some of those guys go, but who is that dude? Right?
You have a situation where those that are vocal on this defense have not performed well.
That's fair.
And that's fair. It's problematic if you're a younger guy listening to somebody. And it's also problematic if you're on offense and you see your position coach or your coordinator pre-change.
Yeah.
Keep telling you this is how it's going to go and this is what's going to work, and it doesn't.
Ever.
Part of it's because of you, part of it's because of them. So you have a real cluster bleep going on right now. And you've got Ty, you've got a polar bear that's trying to give you the old giddy up despite a dinged up knee.
Yep.
You got a secondary and an offensive line that have billions of starts. But it's just hard to hear X number of voices and buy in one more time. And if you're Matt Rule, he looked like hell on Thursday.
Oh, dude, this season has completely
Aged
worn
him.
him out. Yeah.
It's 4 years of the presidency in 8 weeks for him.
Well, and he knows. Listen, it's so frustrating to talk about, but it is very true. It's just true. Nebraska's close. They're freaking close. You know, they're so far away mentally, it appears. But my God, I mean, against USC in particular, you're talking about the difference of like 3 inches of extra length on fingertips, and Nebraska wins that game going away. Like it's they're. And I've gotten
into a blowout.
By the way, I've gotten a little bit of frustrated, maybe because I take up for the small guy and the short guy. I'm all about the short guy, team short guy. Malcolm Hartzog, I think, gets way too much crap. Like, if you notice when it's Hartzog that gets beat for a touchdown, he's draping the dude. He's there. He's in position. It's not like he's getting torched, right? It's not like you never see the shot of like some guy with 5 yards of separation from him. He's right there.
It's a good throw.
He is like a quarter second too slow on reaction or on mistiming his jumps. I still think that's a dude that is going to figure, like, if Nebraska's defense is going to be right these last 3 games, I think that's kind of the difference is you need that quarter second. You need that quarter inch to find the, because he is right there. He's super physical for his size. He plays every play hard. You never worry about that dude taking a play off or not hitting hard. I think it's so, like, people talk about it's going to be, hey, Raiola's going to have a great game, or the receivers finally have to step up. I think it's going to be some of those dudes that have been marginalized but aren't maybe near the liability like as they come across, right? I think there's a difference between, because there have been some players like Tommy Hills, he's not playing the rest of the way, right? Like, we know he's not at corner. Like, he got torched. He wouldn't hit people. And it's probably because of injury. I'm not trying to call the dude out from, like, how motivated he is or whatever. But that ain't Hartzog, right? That's not that, like, that's different.
He's trying to do the right thing.
That's very different.
I want to go back about 2 minutes. You said if they're going to figure it out over the final 3 games, is that intentional or a slip of the tongue saying 3 games is 2?
Well, I'm kind of going with
maybe that's the kind of confidence that Nebraska needs right now.
I'm going with law of averages at this point. I just losers talk about luck or whatever. You make your own luck, whatever. Nebraska's had incredibly terrible luck. Like,
gotta make your own, man.
You do. Nebraska's at fault for some of this, but I'm just saying, law of averages wise, Nebraska continuing to lose in these one-score games, it's starting to get statistically impossible, right? Like, it's just starting to reach that point where it's maybe we are at that and have been at that point, and especially when you consider the dumpster fires of offensive leadership that are happening at Iowa and at Wisconsin right now. Iowa's down to their 5th string quarterback, for God's sake. Wisconsin's down to, what was this guy, number 3 or number 2? And not very good. Fired their offensive coordinator. Like, these are 2 vulnerable teams. Iowa and Wisconsin are vulnerable. Not that Nebraska isn't, but I don't think that Nebraska has been lucky enough to face those 2 programs when they're reeling. And those 2 programs are reeling right now.
Nebraska's had 3 straight with really crossroads moments for the other guy.
Yep.
You look at it last weekend, USC was reeling.
Yep.
They got healthy. UCLA, I know they had beaten Rutgers, but they went on a bye. UCLA was a mess.
Yeah.
They got right. Now you look at Wisconsin, they are DEFCON 2 right now.
Yeah.
With the world wanting Fickle out, and he pops the offensive coordinator. And Nebraska themselves, they were at DEFCON 3 where they made a change with Dana. And I want to run this. Brandon Vogel's coming up in 10 minutes. We're here at the Single Barrel weekend edition of Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Gary Sharp coming up here in about an hour. But I want to hear Dana's take on things. It's the most famous comments, this week you've heard when it comes to wide receiver blocking. He set the tone, and then we'll run, if we can, Elijah, Rule's response to that, because pretty much Matt Rule had to go get, a bodyguard / heavy / hitman, because whatever the message has been has fallen on deaf ears on the offensive side of the football for Nebraska. So credit Rule making a move, but is it too little, too late for this season?
For this season, maybe, but
big picture, it's the right take.
100%. And I take great confidence from that alone, because you have had a string of coaches stubbornly hang on to staffs that probably weren't quite ready. And let's be real, for as great of a story as it would have been if Garrett McGuire was the second coming and like a receiver whisperer,
the next Lincoln Riley,
what an incredible story that would have been. That ain't the story. The dude is not ready to coach a Division I fleet of receivers at a Power 4 program. And of course he's freaking not. He's 24, 25. Like, come on. Like, so I credit Rule for, and I would expect, even if he keeps the title to save face or whatever, there's going to be some help coming on the coaching staff, since you have unlimited coaching, staffs now, and you can have as many as you want. I think you can expect, even if McGuire sticks around, he ain't going to be the only receivers coach. They used to have inside receivers and outside receivers.
Dana started this.
Right. So if you think Holgorsen is going to sit there and watch that crap continue, that ain't going to happen.
You don't have an offensive staff where there's an alpha leading that side of the football to bring the young guys along. You have pretty good defensive staff, but here's Dana Holgorsen from earlier in the week, pretty much saying it needs to get better on offense.
I thought they blocked well. That's the first thing I challenged them. I was like, guys, I said, you guys are fairly big kids. I know 17's not a big kid, but he's a tough kid. But there's some good-sized kids out there, 16, 18, 4. These guys, 29, these guys are big bodies. I'm like, why are you not blocking worth the crap on the perimeter? It's embarrassing. You got being a receiver, you say, the one touches, throw me the ball. First thing I said to him, if you don't start blocking out there, then you're not going to get the ball thrown to you. And this past week, it was our best perimeter blocking of the season. I was very happy with those guys, and they're proud of it, because they worked hard on it for 2 weeks. That's where it starts, and then just details of route running and ball skills. We got guys that can make plays. The problem that we probably ran into last week is not defeating man coverage. USC's very talented in their secondary. Wisconsin's very talented in their secondary. Both are going to play a lot of man. We didn't do a very good job of separation last week. We need to do a better job of that this week for us to be successful against Wisconsin.
We'll get our StreamYard shout-outs going in here, our starting five in a moment. Here's Matt Rule, and as he made it very clear that this is the biggest week in a long time for him in his coaching career, he understands what the stakes are, the equity that he's built up versus the equity that is out the window if you lose 5 straight and got to go to Iowa City to get to 6. But Matt Rule talked about Dana and his approach.
It's been great. You say that, just the verbiage, working with the staff. Also, I kind of, he's just out there at practice, like he's putting a lot of pressure on the guys, to make the plays. He's a guy that's never not scored. I don't know what the lowest yards per. When I looked at it, it was like 34 points per game one season, right? Like he scores a lot of points. And what's happened this year is it's again, he was very direct in his press conference. I'm not quite as direct because I'm the head coach, but he was very direct, and he's been very direct with them. If they want to win, they're going to have to go make plays. They're going to have to catch balls, break tackles, make long runs, make big blocks against an excellent defense, score touchdowns in the red zone. And it's not the plays that do it. It's the players that do it. And, I think he's I don't know what the right word is, imprinting that to them. For all year it was like, Sat was saying it to him, but, all the noise was, well, it's Sat's fault. So the players can sometimes be like, well, gosh, if Sat did a better job. Well, no, Dana comes in and he's saying the same exact thing. Hey, go make that play. Like, we're not kicking field goals. We're not kicking field goals on third down in the red zone. Like, go make the play on third down. So I think that's good. That's the way we want to empower our players. We want our players to believe that players win games. And so I think Dana's juice and energy and intensity, and the fact that the guys, they have nowhere to turn, except to turn to themselves. Like, I want us to go win the game, and I want our players to walk off proud knowing that they won the game. Coach Rule didn't win the game. Dana didn't win the game. Tony didn't win the game. I want the players to go win the game. And so I think he's helped get that message across.
That was Matt Rule. It's Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate Weekend Edition. Pregame, Real Red Reaction follows right around 6-ish. Tuck is in. Game Dog, good to have you, brother. Bruce from Spearfish. Captain is here. A lot of comments on how good Indiana looks. They do. That's 2 red zone turnaways by the Hoosiers. Man. They are.
They play clean football.
Coach Brandon's here. NASCAR Eric checking in. We'll get to some of your comments shortly. Mike is in as well. JB is my dad. CK Cash 26 says, let's go 1-0. Good to have you in. The Real Matthew. Way to check in, bud. Appreciate you. He's getting ready for some bone-in ribeye. The Real Matthew is. That sounds, quite frankly, incredible. You can get that here at the Single Barrel. And I'm thinking of ordering. Quite honestly, I'm a hungry dude. Black Hills Brennan checks in. Tiger Shark Diver. There might be an RSVP from the Snitley boys for post-game whiskeys. Steven is here. Walter from Philly. Rick, good to have you. We'll get more comments. Phil, rule of the day. Good to have you all. Quick timeout. We'll proceed forward here. Big one. Nebraska-Wisconsin Hail Varsity Weekend Edition continues here on KFOR, KFORnow.com.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
I am the father of a 9-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little boy, and I find fatherhood both relentlessly challenging and relentlessly rewarding. My daughter is biological and my son is adopted. I love them both so much, from the morning when you wake up to putting them to bed at night and every moment in between. It really is so special, and boy, is it exhausting. One thing that I fear about being a parent is the future for my children. I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings. But I'm also hopeful that the future holds a more inclusive and compassionate world for them.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, sis. Missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats. Okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my friend if I can help it. See you at 6?
Let's get it. See you then.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Check in on one another and be a part of a healthy blood pressure movement. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals, because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Every 2 minutes, a woman in the U.S. is diagnosed with breast cancer. And in that split-second moment in time, her life changes forever. The toll of breast cancer is great. The need to support those who are battling the disease today is even greater. And that's why when others look away, Susan G. Komen leans in. We're fighting alongside patients because we know one moment can change a lifetime. Fighting breast cancer takes funding for research to discover the next new treatment, providing access to quality and affordable health care, and people willing to take action by raising funds and raising their voice to advocate for others. United by Hope.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you here at the Single Barrel Weekend Edition. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Reed. And there you go. Ohio State up 14-7.
Just before the break, too.
2 for 4 in the red zone. It could be a lot uglier, but a lot of that's Indiana's own thing. It's a great day in Columbus, man. But you got some good football with Indiana, Ohio State. That's the game. 2:30. You have the Buffs invading Arrowhead against the Fighting Leopolds, and KU trying to knock off a third straight ranked squad.
What do you think they'll get? 60,000 there?
Sold out.
It's sold out?
It is.
Wow, that's surprising.
Per Coach Barnett.
I guess it's sort of an event.
It is. It's awesome. And then there's Nebraska and Wisconsin on BTN. Brandon Vogel with us. Vogues, this game means a ton to Nebraska fans. There's a lot of Wisconsin fans still gathered around the bar here at the Single Barrel. The team took off here. And you just wonder, right? You absolutely wonder who can stop the dysfunction today. And, how's Nebraska gonna respond, right? Who's gonna step up? Who's gonna fix it? And man, it's gotta have it time for Nebraska. Gotta have a time for Wisconsin too. But really, truly, for Nebraska, their staff and these seniors that have given so much of themselves, kind of fascinating. You hope it's a good football game, not a rock fight, but this thing tends to be a rock fight.
Yeah, for narrative purposes, but also just feel good purposes, it'd be nice to see a senior or two be that guy that makes the difference on senior day. And I think there are some realistic options for that, particularly on the defensive front for Nebraska. Otherwise, is it going to be a rock fight? Yeah, it's probably going to be a rock fight. As I wrote in the preview on Thursday, if you want a fun game to play, like I think the score 25 is a hard number to hit. I think the score for this Wisconsin-Nebraska football game has a good chance of matching a score from one of the volleyball sets this evening. So I'm really rooting for that daily double to happen, and if it does, I'll never shut up about it. But I think that's the territory we're in terms of this Nebraska-Wisconsin football game.
15-10, then you're calling?
No, that's old. They changed the scoring now, Mark. So
no, I'm talking fifth set. Set.
Okay.
Come on now. 15. There's no way it'll hit 25. Come on, that's like.
Well, no, I think it probably close to like 21-21. But somebody's got to win there. So yeah, that's the problem. We got to have somebody hit 25, or we need one of those sets to go a little bit extra to get us to a more normal football number.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, Wisconsin's a little bit tough to categorize, obviously because of all the turmoil they've had offensively. They had, their top running back just shut it down for the year. Will Pauling is hurt at receiver. Offensive coordinator changing. They've had
Wohlers is hurt.
Yeah, they've had quarterback. A lot's going on offense. But the teams they've lost to are damn good teams, like really good teams. The teams they beat are bad, but they bludgeoned them, right? They didn't just squeak by.
You got a lot of common opponents, but different score margins.
They drilled them. And so I feel like Nebraska is maybe one of the first teams they've played. I still think Nebraska's a notch above a Purdue or a Northwestern. I don't think that's the company they keep, but they're close. But Nebraska's above them. It feels like Nebraska is one of their first middle-of-the-road teams that Wisconsin's even played. They've gotten beat by the good ones. They've killed the bad ones. How do you think that plays out when Nebraska just matchup-wise today? In terms of, is this bludgeon potential today?
I don't think so. I think you hit on a good point. Like, vibes-wise, it's not good at either place. Like last year, I think it feels like a little bit like Wisconsin might be feeling it just a tiny bit more, having made the coordinator switch a week after Nebraska did the same thing, and just losing close, losing in the fashion it did to Oregon. It's remarkable how much this game resembles last year's game. That said, the fact that Wisconsin's kind of lost big to teams that are pretty good and beaten big teams that it's been better than, Nebraska and Wisconsin might be kind of equivalent, but Nebraska's been a little bit all over the map. Played great against Ohio State on the road, came home in the one game that people kind of still gave them. It was like, oh, they'll get Bill eligible by beating UCLA, and never led. So, it's just in terms of consistency, I think that's at least edge Wisconsin, which has been the case since 2012, since the last time Nebraska beat Wisconsin. So I think that's a piece of this you have to worry about for the Huskers. Like, there's a lot, I think, to like in this game for Nebraska, but that part of it's not one. Like, we saw a very similar Wisconsin team find a way to get it done a year ago, and that was with Chubba Purdy out of nowhere, playing really, really well. So it's a strange series.
Brandon, more important today in your eyes, the offense or the defense? Because the offense, it's week 2 under Holgorsen, kind of week 3 whenever you think about it, but game 2 under Holgorsen. As for the defense, they're going up against a team in Wisconsin that has a new offensive coordinator. There might be a couple wrinkles that Wisconsin throws in there, and you also have to worry about that bump of kind of confidence whenever a new offensive coordinator or a new play caller takes charge, where, the team maybe has a little bit more self-belief. Do you think there's more strains going to be placed in the offense, the defense today for Nebraska to go get boiled?
Yeah, I mean, assuming we don't see like a massive jump from the Wisconsin offense, something similar to maybe what we saw from Nebraska last week, where it's like, oh, okay, I can see there's a couple of things that are encouraging here, but it's not like they went from, averaging 24 points a game to dropping 42 or something like that. I think the onus then mostly is on the offense. It's kind of been that way, even though the defense has had its weak points and has some weaknesses, I think, at this point in their second season under this staff. I still expect that group to hold up pretty well for the most part. It comes like offensively, and we'll see how Nebraska wants to attack it. I have an idea of how I think they should try to attack it, but you got to get some better quarterback play, and they need to get some sort of consistent running game going. And maybe you don't need both of those in a game that should be pretty tight and close quarters, but you got to have one of them, and one of them consistently. So I think the biggest questions that are being asked here are of the offense.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read, counterread.com. We'll get some volleyball thoughts from Vogues as well as Nebraska tries to get the double dip going against Wisconsin today here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Brandon Vogel. So this is all about the run game today. For me, it is stopping the run. It is running the football. It's controlling the football. And it's backs hitting holes. It's 30-plus touches by Emmett, right? It's Emmett getting touches. It's maybe
30.
Yeah, between running and catching. Total.
Okay.
Build on the production he gave you.
So you're saying an Emmett-centric offense. That's
Yes.
I mean, that's fine. I'm not hating on it. I'm just
absolutely.
like that'd be different.
You're gonna have, allegedly, we'll see some Quinn Clark today. I think you'll see Bullock, the wideout, make an emergence today, and I want to see more Lloyd. I mean, I think there's guys that have disappeared. There's guys you've leaned on and you've come back to that haven't performed, and despite it being senior day, I don't care. Go play guys that will win the ball game for me. And I think Nebraska, if they want to win today, will make that unpopular move. And my biggest question, Vogues, is this Nebraska team, do they want it? I know there's guys in that locker room that want it, but is everybody on the same page there? I mean, have they checked out? Are they ready for the year to be done? Or are they ready to go give her hell one more time in front of 85,000 to get it done? What's the care level?
Yeah, I would expect it to be high, but you never know because we're not in there. That's one of those things that you'll probably be able to tell pretty early in the game. And I completely agree with you regarding the run game. Like in terms of the key numbers that I look at each week, and I put these in the game preview every Thursday. Like one of the few advantages that Nebraska's offense has when compared to the Wisconsin defense is rushing success rate. So that's not explosive plays. That's just staying on schedule, 4 or 5 yards, a pop if you can get it. Nebraska was in the 58th percentile there. Wisconsin, I think, was 38th or 39th. So it's not a huge edge, but it's there. And the other piece of this that I think is important, this Wisconsin team is kind of shockingly low in terms of the tackles for loss that it generates. So to me, that even indicates more. Now, I know Nebraska made the offensive coordinator switch and all of that, but kind of hints at run it like Nebraska did a lot of the times last year, where some of those runs didn't look all that impressive. They were just kind of like, well, there's 3 yards or whatever. Do that early and see where it gets you late, because anything can happen in one game. But to this point, Wisconsin hasn't been a team that's been in your backfield, opposing teams' backfields a whole lot. So you don't have to worry as much as you would normally about those rushes being negative plays, which I think is a big factor in this one.
One thing interesting about Wisconsin, when you look at them, if Nebraska is going to win defensively, havoc plays might be kind of tough on them today. Yeah, Wisconsin doesn't give up tackles for loss. They don't give up sacks because they get rid of the ball. How does that impact maybe how – because you can sort of rely on Nebraska's defense. When they're best, they're creating havoc. If that's taken away, how does Nebraska win defensively today?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting with Wisconsin because they are sort of don't get a lot of tackles for loss defensively, but don't give a ton up. And it's the same for sacks, of course. So I think Nebraska's advantage defensively is, it's been sliding in terms of its success rate allowed, both in terms of the rush and especially the pass, but it doesn't give up a ton of big plays. So this would be a game where defensively I could see Nebraska staying on the field, and with Wisconsin, which, with Braden Locke, still the backup quarterback, like hasn't been that good overall. Played pretty well against Oregon last week, though. Make them stay on the field. Like, make them show that in their no OC, new OC, whatever we want to call this collaboration.
Collaborative play calling.
Yeah,
it's great.
Make them show, like, if they're going to go 8-9 plays and drive to get a field goal or a touchdown, then hats off. I think that's the ask Nebraska has to make.
Hey, real quick, Elijah, I know I'll get to you next. Just real quick. What about guys? Well, look, I wouldn't say guys. I'll just call them out specifically. Malcolm Hartzog, I think, is a pretty controversial defensive player for Nebraska. I personally, I love the dude. I think he's great. I think he is a quarter inch off, or a quarter second late, or a quarter second too slow. But I feel like he can close those gaps because he's athletic enough. I think it's just timing is just a little off. I'm just curious how you think about him in particular, because he's going to be out there, right? He's going to be out there a lot. Teams tend to target him. But Brandon, is it just me, or is it the plays that are made against him are really good plays, and he's right there. He's generally not getting scorched, right? And it's so if just
he's
that
getting
alone,
targeted though, man. You've got a long history of guys making plays on third down or go ahead touchdowns, and I like the kid's effort too.
I get it, but
you need another option.
They're not easy plays though. Like, there have been some terrific catches made against him, right? There's some incredibly athletic catches and it's sort of like that's what it takes against him. And I'm just thinking about law of averages. I mean, he was a fingertip away from picking off that ball in the end zone last weekend. And I just feel like if you can get him to get, Rule talks about a 1% better. I just need him to be like 0.25% better. And I think it changes the entire dynamic. I'm just curious what you think about him in particular.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He's tenacious. Like, I think there's no better way to describe him than that, and that's not up for debate. Like, he's just going to be there. He's going to be around the ball, as you guys have both mentioned. Like, and this was truer to a greater degree than I think we'd seen at any point last season. Like, USC put him in the crosshairs. Like, they went after him, and some of Rule's comments about the secondary this week, I think, would have probably involved Malcolm. Unfortunately, that first touchdown where it almost looked like a pick. Like, I don't think, who knows what the guys are being told, but based on what we know, just kind of broadly of football, like, I don't think he played that right because he didn't have help over the top. So what looks like a near pick is probably closer to a bust in that situation. And it's still, like, to the tenaciousness point, like, he still almost made the play.
He made up for it, right? Like,
he made up for it. Yes.
Right.
So I think that's the thing where it's a tough one to balance, because you see just how tough he plays. But you also look like he's 5'9". Teams go after him for that reason. Yeah. A lot of those plays that are close might be for that reason, because they're just like, well, we'll go against the little guy in some cases. So I think broadly, though, I would agree with your point. Like, he's 0.25% better. He's a percent better. It has a chance to make the difference, because guess what? This team will probably go after him too, just like a lot of others have.
Braden, as we wind it down here, I want to get your thoughts as we talk about the secondary. Braden Locke is a guy, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on the year. That's, I think, a way Nebraska's defense can can make a difference in this one. If you go get yourself an interception, go win the turnover battle, and that's where I want to go. What do you make of the fact that Nebraska has not won the turnover battle since that Rutgers game?
It's dragged obviously down the big positive number we had early. I think big picture, I'm starting to kind of look at this with them at even of, a lot of people, myself included, in the offseason said, well, if they could just even be close to even, like what a difference that would make. Well, here they are, 5-5 against the same opponent with a completely even turnover margin. That said, in any one game, it makes a difference. Like you win the turnover battle. Nebraska has a much better shot to win this game. As much as I'll be watching that, I'll probably be watching Locke's completion percentage as the game goes along, and that's one where different offense, maybe a couple of different ideas helps boost that. But I mean, he's been at 50% in all of their losses, like this year as a starter, this year and last year. So like, if he has a game where, he starts out 6 for 8 or, 7 for 7 or something like that, Nebraska is probably in a little bit of trouble there, because when he's able to complete passes, Wisconsin tends to win. So be active, get hands on the football when it's in the air. If you intercept a couple, great. But I almost look at his completion percentage as probably the better and more consistent barometer.
Brandon Vogel with us. And Vogues, tell us about counter read. Tell us about what happens at the Devaney Center before we say goodbye, Nebraska-Wisconsin round 2.
Yeah, with Nebraska volleyball, there's kind of been nothing to get too concerned about performance-wise. It's just becomes kind of a mental challenge, and Wisconsin is obviously still a good opponent. Nebraska kind of got a monkey off its back with the win in Madison earlier. So, we'll see. Do they just keep steaming along? Because they feel a little bit invincible. I would expect Wisconsin to test them a little bit more tonight for Nebraska to struggle with just that piece of it. They've been so good, it becomes a tough standard to uphold. But Huskers are tough to beat on their home floor. So we'll have plenty from that. We'll have plenty from today's game. Our subscriber game day chat has already started for football, and might even keep that running through volleyball. So if you want to hop in, you can head over to Counter Read, sign up, become a subscriber, and join us as we chat Wisconsin, Nebraska twice today.
Personally, I recommend the annual route.
Do it.
My annual just re-upped. That's the way to roll. So
and
that is absolutely the way to roll.
And dare I say, as you look forward to Christmas, what a great gift for the Husker fan in your life.
Amen.
Seriously. Give them the gift of Brandon and Aaron.
Yes. More coming on that next week, of course. Now would be a good time to get signed up, at least as a free subscriber, so you make sure you get the notifications.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I've buried the hatchet. I love you. Here's Counter Read for you.
Right.
Vogues, appreciate you, bud. We'll holler next week, and thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
And by the way, Brent, I think it's a great touch, too, that you're going to give a personal Merry Christmas to everybody that subscribes. On that day, you're going to call all of them. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
It shall be done.
Yep.
Thanks,
guys. Vogues like, get me out of here.
You
All
wake
right.
up. Happy Merry Christmas from Brandon.
So what? I got two things.
We're over on time here.
Okay. So Elijah's like, shut the hell up. Hour 2 coming up, single barrel, where we're at here inside the Graduate Hail Varsity Weekend continues.
Break all the rules, man.
When it feels like the world has stopped, good finds a way. Good is happening, even now. Good connects us, even when we can't get close. Good never stops, and neither does Children International. With support from caring friends, we help provide children and families with the critical essentials they need. The
essentials like food assistance, hygiene education, medical help, and financial support. To learn more, go to children.org/help today. Together, we can help end poverty for good.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
My name is Alana. I was 6 years old, and I got diagnosed with cancer. I come to St. Jude for treatment.
After her last treatment on December the 4th, I was just kind of having a conversation with her, letting her know, Alana, you did awesome. I'm so proud of you. You fought, you accepted whatever was happening, you went with it. And her words to me were, Mommy, thank you so much for helping me get through this. She said, I could not have done this without you. This was very hard. And I couldn't even hold my tears because when I think about it, I would not have been able to get through this without St. Jude. And so once we became part of the St. Jude family, everything was okay. Thank you, St. Jude, for helping me get her through this because I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
The mission of Paralyzed Veterans of America is clear. Accessibility. Veterans who have served and sacrificed the best of themselves deserve access to the best our country has to offer. Access to meaningful employment. Access to the veterans' benefits they've earned. Accessible homes and vehicles. And access to every part of their communities. With PVA staff working inside VA hospitals, no other veterans organization has provided more real-time, ongoing support for paralyzed veterans and their families. PVA is proud to serve veterans across all branches, all generations, and all conflicts. Our nation's heroes fought for your independence. Join PVA in fighting for theirs at pva.org.
Equal opportunity, especially in the workforce, is the cornerstone of the American dream. Being employed gives us the confidence to be financially independent. There's real meaning in supporting ourselves and those we care about. We feel respected, useful, even empowered to become leaders. But what if you were one of the 6.5 million people in the U.S. with an intellectual or developmental difference, such as autism? 81% of adults with developmental differences don't even have a paid job, and only about 1/3 of the public believes they're capable of having leadership roles. Now is the time to change that. Join the SunTrust Foundation in supporting Autism Speaks, Best Buddies, and Special Olympics in creating pathways to 1 million employment and leadership opportunities for this talented community by 2025. Together, we can build a broader workforce for the future. Visit deliveringjobs.org to learn more.
The high school football season has wrapped up here on KFOR, and now we're getting ready for the upcoming high school basketball season, which begins in early December. Catch all the action right here.
FM 101.5, 1240 AM is your station for local news, talk, sports, and weather. FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR, Lincoln.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. The president-elect nominating a hedge fund manager to lead the Treasury Department. ABC's Mary Ellis Parks on Trump's latest cabinet pick.
Trump selecting Wall Street veteran billionaire Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary, writing in his announcement that Bessent will help me usher in a new golden age for the United States. Bessent worked for years for Democratic mega donor George Soros, but has also been a prolific fundraiser for Trump.
And Trump has picked Oregon Representative Lori Chavez-Dremer to lead the Labor Department, and some labor unions are already backing the choice. Chavez-Dremer, one of the few Republicans supporting the PRO Act to help workers unionize, still needs Senate confirmation to take the job. A hostage reported killed in Gaza. ABC's Lama Hassan in London.
Hamas saying that a female hostage who was being held in northern Gaza was killed in recent weeks, also adding that a second hostage, also female, was injured and that her life is, quote, still in danger.
Israeli Defense Forces say they're examining Hamas's claim. This as today's Israeli airstrikes on central Beirut left 11 dead, 63 injured, though rescue teams fear that death toll could climb. That from Lebanon's Ministry of Public Health. In a third attempt to get their client out, Sean Diddy Combs' legal team pitched several reasons why a judge should let the music mogul out of jail on bail while he awaits his sex trafficking trial.
His defense attorney said he should be allowed to see select family members all the time, urging the judge to let him out on home detention at a 3-bedroom apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side with restrictions: 24/7 private security guard that Diddy pays for, restrictions on who can visit, just lawyers and select relatives, no contact with witnesses or potential witnesses. Federal prosecutors said Sean Combs cannot be trusted to follow any rules.
ABC's Aaron Katursky in New York. You're listening to ABC News.
My son loves to fly kites, but my active psoriatic arthritis can sometimes hold me back. Now with Skyrizi to treat my skin and joints, I'm ready to go. Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults, helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Early holiday shopping. Retailers like Walmart already have Black Friday deals. Shopping expert Trey Bodge has the shopping forecast this year.
Prices are coming down in some categories, but we are seeing very conservative spending. The National Retail Federation is predicting 2.5 to 3.5% jump over last year, which, as you can imagine, barely accounts for inflation. So I think consumers are going to be spending very carefully this season.
The most popular gift this year? Gift cards. That's easy. A Republican-led push to allow Bible lessons in Texas classrooms starting next year, approved by state regulators Friday. Mary Elizabeth Castle, Director of Government Relations for the group Texas Values Backs Bible Study.
The way that they're taught in a setting that children can study the Bible as a piece of literature, which it has been recognized as for so many years in the Western world.
Critics expect legal challenges, citing First Amendment separation of church and state. The number of E. coli cases expanding across the U.S. after back-to-back outbreaks. 167,000 pounds of ground beef, both fresh and frozen, now recalled due to potential E. coli contamination. The meat was distributed by Detroit-based Wolverine Packing Company as a use-by date of November 14th. Health experts say at least 15 people in Minnesota have been sickened, including 2 who are hospitalized. Meantime, authorities expanding that E. coli recall of bagged carrots from Grimway Farms. Dave Packer, ABC News.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Public urged to protect against frozen pipes. I'm Jeff Bryden, KFOR News. With the arrival of cold temperatures, Lincoln Water System reminds property owners to take steps to protect pipes from freezing and avoid costly damage or high water bills. Lincoln Water System officials say the most common problems involve lawn irrigation systems that have not been properly winterized. Pipes can also freeze along exterior walls, in poorly insulated structures, and in unheated basements, crawl spaces, attached garages, and cabinets. More information can be found in the news section at KFORnow.com. The Lincoln Police Department is conducting a traffic enforcement project focusing on seatbelt use beginning today through December 1st. As part of the National Make It Click enforcement program, additional officers will patrol Lincoln, employing a zero-tolerance approach to those who are stopped and found to not be using seatbelts. And the number 21 Nebraska.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's hour two. It's Hail Varsity live here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Big thanks to Mark Kraynak for rocking hour one with us. Brandon Vogel also spent time with us from Counter Reed. And we'll hear from the Iron Horse here in about 20 minutes. Gary Sharp will check in, get his take on Nebraska, his take on Wisconsin. Ohio State has woken up 21-7. It's been a comedy of errors for Indiana, despite turning away Ohio State a couple of times in the red zone. 21-7 right now. Ohio State, big answer drive here for Rourke and Indiana, just underway third quarter. Colorado, Kansas get rolling at Arrowhead, Nebraska, and Wisconsin 2:30 kick on BTN.
You talk about a big response drive. Ohio State's got the ball back.
Well, I'm clearly delayed here.
Right? I'm just seeing what's online. I don't know. I'm
watching. You might be delayed because
I got Tottenham Man City pulled up on my phone. I'm a true American today watching soccer.
You're a vicious monkey. I love it. Pretty good. Nebraska basketball. What the hell? That was super impressive. Elijah Herbel called it. And what a defensive effort. What a physical effort. What a smart, well-played job and execution. Asijan was so good with his decision to drive, not just settle. And Creighton launched, I think it was 10 shots were twos. The rest were threes. He had one attempt by Kalkbrenner. That's embarrassing.
Well, I tried to tell you last night, Schmidt, the three-point shooting of Creighton is not what it's been in years past this year. They came into the game.
Am I wrong for thinking that teams get well against most Nebraska teams?
I think that's your PTSD speaking, Schmidt. I think that's what that is. I didn't expect that last night because that was not a fluke. Not a fluke. That was not an upset. That was an ass kicking, is what it was.
It was. It was. They couldn't even get the ball into to Kalkbrenner, and that's Nebraska's post being physical and tough, and you feel great for Jawan Gary and Bryce. I mean, man, they played good ball, and the other guys, the new guys, I mean, they played just such a smart brand of basketball. They just physically whipped them, and it was pretty cool to see if you're a Nebraska basketball fan.
And it's like similar to what Nebraska needs, where it was all guys playing with intensity, with that unwavering self-belief. I think is that the Jameis Winston quote, unwavering self-belief. I think so. But added to that, like Fred Hoiberg came in and out-schemed Creighton. Go back and watch the defensive sets. They played perfectly on Kalkbrenner. Creighton never had an answer. like fronting Kalkbrenner in the post. You had that backside guy come and help on the baseline. It made it impossible to get the entry pass into Kalkbrenner. And what does Creighton do? They start settling for threes. And when the threes aren't falling, it starts getting very, very ugly. The threes haven't really been falling for Creighton so far this season. It wasn't a surprise to see them shoot, I shouldn't say that poorly, but not well from the 3-point line last night. They didn't. That's why Nebraska gets a win. But you got to tip your cap to Fred Hoiberg on that one. A beautiful defensive game plan that was then beautifully executed by the players on the floor. Intensity, self-belief, that confidence in the guy next to you. They showed all of that today. And those are the kind of things that Nebraska needs if they want to go win in the Big Ten. We talk about how well coached the Big Ten is. You can't come in with a team today that gets out-coached and out-physicaled. I mean,
both things can't
you have
every today.
As Great Wolf here says, you have every opportunity to go capitalize today. You need that from the coaching staff, getting the guys prepared, getting the right game plan, and then you need the guys on the field to go out there and play with that self-belief, with the confidence in the guy next to them, to go out and just do their dang job. That's what Damon said on Thursday. It's about understanding however many minutes of game time you're going to get in the game. You got to go out there and execute in those minutes. Trust in the guy next to you, trust in yourself, and go out and execute. And when it hasn't been one thing this year for Nebraska, especially in this losing streak, it's been another. We've seen Nebraska out-coached. We've seen Nebraska out-executed. You got to have both in the Big Ten. Nebraska basketball had it last night. Does Nebraska football have it today?
You can't get out-physical either. I mean, there's three parts to this thing, right? Out-coached, out-physical. Sometimes you're out-talented, but you can't be out-toughed either. And it's one thing to be out-toughed physically, but you can't be out-toughed mentally. And that's where Wisconsin's really, truly had the edge these last 10 ball games, is they've been just better between the ears. Thank you so much. So you have no Pauling. You have no Wohlers. And those two guys are absolutely vital with the wins Wisconsin has had this year, and vital to the effort they gave last week against number one in the country. So with Nebraska, their task today is, A, it's about energy, B, it's about belief, but also the want-to aspect of it. And I hate to go psycho-babble on a Saturday at 1 here, but they've got to kind of come together. And I saw this comment, and you hear it, you know, great teams are player-led, average teams are coach-led. And then awful teams have no leadership. I don't know where this team is at, from who's leading the charge, how that charge is going if it doesn't go perfectly for them out of the gate. And you're having a transition moment in this football team, as it is senior day, and you're transitioning to other guys that stay on the team that aren't hitting the portal. You know, what's that leadership look like? And from a talent standpoint, I think you've got some good guys. I think you need to be better at your talent evaluation from who you bring in the portal, not the physical gifts. We know that Banks and Nayor and Mazuka and Dowdell are physically gifted, really good on paper football guys. But when it comes to performance in the game, it's got to be consistent, and it's got to be at a high level, and you can't not do your job. So moving forward, that's a big thing for Nebraska football, is to have the right guys and get the football to the right guys that are going to do it, whether they're getting the ball or not. And I'm glad Dane is here to help kind of spur that along, because you can't, and Rule's right, you can't have this same message, this breakthrough message, Elijah, going into year 3. It's got to happen today. If it doesn't happen today, God love any Husker fan that's going to Iowa City, because you still got chances, but your morale and belief and want to for this program, man, it's been tested for a while. It really will be tested if they don't get it done today.
And the concern that I have today is there's storylines today that really remind me of that 2020 Minnesota game, where Minnesota comes in shorthanded. It's a game.
Oh, you nailed it, right?
It's a game.
30 guys without COVID on the team that come in and kill you.
And it's a game you needed. And Nebraska comes out flat, lifeless. The self-confidence goes away very quickly. And Nebraska never looked like the better team that day, despite the fact that I'll take this to my grave, they had the better talent on the field that day. I fully believe they did, but they didn't have the better leadership in their locker room. They didn't have the greater amount of want to on that day. They didn't have the greater amount of self-confidence in themselves, confidence in the guy next to them. That's the concern today, that, you know what, you don't have the right leadership in place right now through this skid that has gone away. You don't have confidence in the guy next to you because, I mean, you heard Dana say it. The guys in the perimeter aren't blocking. The running backs aren't hitting the holes. I mean, that's not confidence instilling for guys on the offense whenever you look at the guy next to you and say, are you getting your job done? That's the concern today for me, that this team, maybe we've talked about the checkout factor, and that's part of it, but like the factor of like, you don't believe in the guy next to you. I don't want to call it the give up factor because that's harsh, but like just that dynamic that we saw against Minnesota, where you come out a little bit lifeless, you don't trust the guy next to you, and the shorthanded team comes in with more juice, more life, more belief in the guy next to him, and they come out and win.
Well, how many guys are just ready to move on? They're over it. They're done with it, you know. And rule of the day checks in here on the stream. You're always welcome to like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube. Also find us on Twitter as well, Hail Varsity Radio, and then the Hail Varsity big account. Rule of the day says that's my biggest worry. These guys have got to want this. I don't know why they wouldn't, but it seems to be an issue. Absolutely cannot come out flat and disinterested. You got to have a collection of guys, Elijah, that want to. Maybe you're over it, right? Maybe you're a freshman. Maybe you're a redshirt. Maybe you have just dwindled on the depth chart, and that's your own doing. You got to want it for guys that have been selling out all year for you, right? You've got to want to go out and do your part, or at least from an emotional standpoint, go play with fire. And the fans have come out and supported, and you are embarking on a project to make the fans want to keep coming back with this South End Zone project. You have NIL. I mean, you have all sorts of bells and whistles to try and bring the best talent in here. It is your currency. It is your love. It is part of your family. I mean, that's what Nebraska fans feel about their football program specifically. And you just don't want to see another, like, if you go get beat, if it's a well-played game with no turnovers and it's back and forth, despite this injury and non-participation report, if Wisconsin rekindles what they did against Oregon and they find a way to make it happen, then tip your cap to them. But so many times it's been Nebraska in their own way with things. And while it's not been sloppy play to the level it has been in the Frost era, it's time now to pull out all the stops. Not play favorites, play winners. And if that means you need more Harburg in the quarterback run game, it's not personal, Dylan, right? If you get off to a shaky start or your back's still bugging you or whatever the hell the case is, just go find 11 that can go score points for you on offense at a more consistent level.
And we'll see, I guess, is the best way to put it, because the question has to be asked, if you have guys that can go out and play more consistently, why aren't they playing? And that's kind of the concern.
Well, but I think that was touched on by Dana. And you can pull that cut up. We can re-air it. But, like, sometimes you're blinded as an assistant or your position coach. Sometimes you have favorites. And I get it. I totally get it. But sometimes the favorites ain't been performing for you on Saturdays. Can we hear that from Dana? Do we have time or do we need to break? Sorry.
We're fine for now, but let me pull it up.
But yeah, Dana talked a little bit about the rotation. I mean, it's a real thing. And here is Holgerson on that, you know, who's playing, who's not playing, and who needs to play.
Yeah, I give my opinion. You know, I give my opinion. And Coach Rule has mentioned this, that, you know, fresh set of eyes on things are good. And I totally 100% believe that. position coaches get blinded by what they see sometimes based on a whole bunch of different things, and sometimes players, they come in and they get fresh set of eyes on it, and some opinions are different than others' opinions, that's what position coaches, they fall in love with specific people and they don't want to give other people chances. That's every position coach across the country falls into that trap. I did too as an assistant. I'm constantly looking at it. I've voiced my opinion. I found one today. Not going to mention it until we go talk about it as a staff, but I found a young kid today that I think can help us play on Saturday. Just keep your eyes open for that. But at the end of the day, it's about competition. If there's competition, then people play better. If there's not competition, then people relax. And, I think our job as coaches, especially in this situation right now, is I'll say, look, this is what I see. If you don't like it, then do something about it in practice,
So Dana kind of laying it down specifically, and good on Dana for that. And you play guys you're comfortable with, you play guys you recruited, you play guys that are going to kind of look, there's all sorts of factors that go into it, and it's not like you've got it out for somebody on the team. To be honest with you, you just can't be wrong. Can I say that? You can't be wrong with your choices. But what I do think I'll see today, you're going to see Quinn Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Likely. That's who Dana's talking about. I think you're going to see Mekhi Nelson at running back. I hope that's the case. I think you're going to see Isaiah Garcia Castaneda today. I think you're going to see Bullock today. Because those guys, along with hopefully some more Lloyd, can get it done for you on the perimeter. They'll go make plays. They'll hopefully fight to get open, because the book is go hit your freshman quarterback with a blitz and play hand-to-hand combat so the wideouts can't get open. It's got to change today.
You got to find the guys, as we kind of talked about earlier, that have that want to go out and block on the perimeter, that want to make a guy miss at the second level and go score a touchdown because they know their spot on the roster is riding on it. And that's a reality of these final two games with the roster cuts coming. I mean, you're going to have to get down to 105. Who wants to be here next year? I think it's a feel it out type game in terms of that as well. Like, who doesn't?
I want Keona Davis here next year. That guy is going to be fun.
I mean, the reality of the matter is there are guys on the roster that, as of right now, know they're not going to be here next year, that don't have that want to, because you know what? They're already looking, a week from now, I'm going to be in the transfer portal. It's a reality. That's not a fear. That's a reality of the situation, because you have to get down to 105. I'm not sure those conversations have happened or not, but there are guys that know, hey, I don't see a path to the field. I'm going to be gone. Or, hey, I have hated this year. I have not had a good time. I want to get out. I'm going to be in the portal next week. You got to find and rely upon the guys that want to be here next year and that want to go earn themselves playing time, earn themselves a spot. That's what these final two games are for me. How many guys have checked out? How many important guys have checked out is the kind of $1 million question, the big question mark with today. And which guys can you find that are going to step up?
Well, and Walter, bless his soul, says Holge needs to admit defeat and shave his head. Old Dana is Dana's got the hairstyle going, and let Dana do Dana, right? I kind of like the flowing locks that emanate from a visor. Andrew checks in. I don't know if it's already been discussed, but I hope we see Van Poppel on the D-line today. Would be a huge help on stopping Wisconsin's run game. He has one game left to redshirt. I think you'll see Van Poppel within the next 2 weeks. I know that's a leap of faith on my part, Andrew, but you don't want to burn it. Thank you. So, and today I think I don't know, just see how the game starts, right, Elijah? How about that? How does Nebraska come out? You can kind of tell early on against the run if it's going to be a long day or a good day. And maybe the same with the offense. Maybe they come out and start attacking those edges a little bit. Get some little 7 to 8 yard completions just up the seam, move the chains. Maybe it comes together with a little more comfort level and continuity with Nebraska and week 2 of Dana.
And Schmidt, before we get out here, because I think we're going to have Gary Sharp stopping by here in just a moment, I do want to make a quick note. You gave me the kiss of death pregame saying I nailed my picks from yesterday. Indiana looks dead in the water. So I think that would
I mean, Indiana's been a train wreck with taking care of the football and special teams. They held firm early against Ohio State, but now it's just rolling. The Iron Horse is in the on-deck circle. I can't wait to talk with him. Gary Sharp from, I believe, the land of LeBron. We'll check in with Gary Sharp, the Iron Horse. Weekend edition continues at Hail Varsity as we're here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate one more time for a home football game at Memorial Stadium.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months. When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
It may not require a textbook, but it's filled with valuable lessons. It may not take place in a classroom, but it's an ideal environment for learning. It may not involve a diploma, but it can help prepare Nebraska's young people for life. High school sports. High school sports can play a critical role in a student's overall education. In fact, studies show that students that participate in high school sports are more likely to enjoy greater levels of achievement in their academic lives. If you think high school sports are only about competition, think again. Better yet, think about attending a high school sporting event in your community. You'll be amazed by what you see. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Nebraska School Activities Association and the Nebraska State Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
ADHD. It's the child who can't pay attention or sit still in school, right? The answer may be yes. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, can be complicated and it can last a lifetime. Living with a condition can sometimes be a challenge. It may take years to accept a formal diagnosis, and it's not always easy to find the right treatment plan. Did you know that up to 75% of children and adolescents with ADHD have at least one additional mental health condition that also requires a comprehensive approach to treatment? ADHD guidelines were recently updated to reflect the need to screen for associated disorders. Be sure to talk with your child's doctor about proper screening and visit more2adhd.com for additional information. That's more2adhd.com. This message has been brought to you in partnership with ADA, ACO, and CHAD.
If you came across a child struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you recognize a 13-year-old boy who gets into fights at school?
Not because he's a boy, but because he's hungry.
Or a 2-year-old girl who cries all night?
Not because she's sick, but because she went to bed without enough to eat.
Or maybe a 9-year-old boy who hopes a friend invites him to a sleepover, not for fun, just so he can have dinner. Or a 15-year-old girl who goes for walks over lunch,
so her friends won't know she doesn't have anything to eat.
I am the 1 in 7 American children who struggle with hunger. Kids you pass by every day, but never knew were hungry. I am child hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. The weekend edition rolls forward here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp is in, and is it LeBron land? Sharpie Claus, how we doing, bud? I think he's muted. Now we got you. We got you.
Good to see you guys. Yes,
how are you, man?
I'm in Akron, Ohio. I'm with Omaha men's basketball. So I just got done watching the first half of Ohio State, Indiana with Ohio State fans. Quite an experience, but now they're kicking the crap out of Indiana, and Indiana's special teams are going to knock them out of the playoffs. So yeah, the home of LeBron, the home of MAC Tuesday night football. It's on campus. There is no football going on today.
How about the home of Skyline Chili, the state of Ohio, at least? No.
No, it's very watery. I think it's just like, like you would die on a hill as a Nebraskan to defend the Runza. People in Cincinnati would die on that hill to defend the Skyline Chili. And people from the outside don't get it because it has too much water in it for me.
That's a good take.
Thank you.
You need your chili to be a little less watery.
Are you the type of guy, Schmidt, that thinks like you should be able to stand your spoon up in your bowl of chili? Yes.
No, I'll say this. My mother's chili was always pretty good and is good. Joe Mama. My wife's chili should never be made again. It's loud enough here with enough people that she's 8 feet from me and there's no knife coming my way. But it's not spicy enough. And then the chili my brother made, it was almost like no sauce in it. And it was the best chili I've ever had. So
okay.
I think whatever Uncle Mark wants to go with, that's the chili we go with. We avoided the Skyline chili, talked Elijah out of it in Columbus.
Smart.
And we were warned by Brian Christopherson and old Brunsey to not harm one another in that fashion. So we didn't do it. So I'm glad to get the chili thing figured out. The playoff discussion, if Indiana continue to get drilled, the drumbeat by the commission, the SEC will be, well, they only have 4 losses, but it's a hell of a 4-loss schedule over a 1-loss Indiana. I want to go to Nebraska. I want to go to Wisconsin.
Let's just cut right to the chase because the injury report is out. Nebraska's at home. Nebraska can't lose this game, right?
No, but they have. They've done it before.
Have. But they have to. I mean, the law of averages, right?
So they're due. It's Ricky Vaughn against Clue Haywood. I think he's due. I mean, is that where we're going?
If you don't win today with things that are lining up for you, then you know what? Basketball has proven that they're going to be exciting this fall. Let's just stop the season. Let's just focus on basketball, schedule a game in Memorial Stadium, and move forward.
No, I mean, if you can't get it done today, but Sharpie, Nebraska saw the same wounded USC team a week ago. Different talent level. Same wounded team against UCLA that they didn't know what the hell they were doing, coming off a bye and a win, a little more momentum for UCLA. But it has been just a draining year, and I hope for these seniors that they get it fixed. I hope for Matt Rule that they get it fixed. I hope for this offensive staff that Dana can continue to guide them verbally and physically towards success, because it'll be an absolute bleep show tonight. And we've experienced our share of them over the last 2 years and the last 10 years with the game that you had that you lost. It'll be a meltdown tonight if they don't make it happen.
So I think this is a huge week in the Matt Rule era at Nebraska.
It is.
Okay, because he did something that at some point in your tenure as the head football coach at whatever university, there becomes a moment where you have to choose the right path that you believe. If you don't choose the right path, then you're not going to get to be on that path very long. He did something this week that it came up to him and he had to choose. And that is the young versus old, calling out guys, holding guys accountable. He finally got the much needed bad cop in his program to speak the truth when he has tried from the day he arrived to be Mr. Nice Guy and let people influence and say, hey man, GBR, Coach Rule, I'm all for it, man. I bleed and die. I want to go Big Red. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I just got here. Okay. This week, he touched the third rail, and he's either going to get burned and he's not going to see the result he wants, or you're going to see a change in Nebraska football, a subtle change that will continue to grow by the decision he made this week to call out guys because he has Dana, because he needs that bad cop in his program, and also take back his program. I think, guys, he tried to let the players have control of the program, and I think this week he tried, and I don't know if he's successful or not, to take back his football program for the last 2 games of the regular season.
And the concern, Gary, in my eyes, you talk about the 2 ways it could go. My concern is doing it at this point in the season when you're on a losing streak, is that guys will say, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to pack it up, pack it in. I'm going to go to the portal next week. I'm going to go to the portal next week. That's my concern, is that guys are going to say, you know what? You want to go call out the seniors. You want to call out the guys that have been playing all year long. Okay, man, I'm going to the portal. I'm going off to whatever job next year. Maybe you're going off to the NFL. The guys will just pack it in and say, I'm done.
Yeah, and, he said some stuff this week. Dana said some stuff this week that you went, this is going on inside of the program, and it took a guy off the streets to get people to respond. What is going on? Okay, you can work on that when you get to the offseason, but, man, it's tough to work on when you're 5-7. So they must win today for people to be validated and go, yeah, I think there's a reason why Quinn Clark was recognized, and also Tommy Hill was pushed to the side to say, shut her down, fella, because we made a mistake. We tried to play you against Illinois when you're injured. That's on us. I think Tommy Hill is the microcosm, guys, of this football season. It began in the offseason where we talked about Tommy Hill being a first-round guy. Man, he's going to be a baller. It's going to be great. What a great story. Then he has the game against Colorado. He has a pick 6. The place goes nuts, and you're like, man, this is how it's supposed to be. And then he suffered an injury, and they put him out there on that opening drive against Illinois. Illinois said, hey, that isn't the guy we've been seeing. Let's pick on him. Illinois scores. Tommy Hill hasn't been the same. And then Tommy Hill kind of drifted away. He tried to play, but for some reason he got a little bit bigger. What happened? He was put on weight during the season. And then finally, whether it be injury or doing your friggin' job, someone this week said, we're good. Hey, you got a chance to play in the NFL. Let's just take 2 games off. And you know what? We'll be good, because when you weren't good, we found a guy. You're not going to be on the field the next 2 games. We're going to find a guy. Sierra Wright, and who's that next young guy in the defensive backfield? So it's a weird vibe, guys, this week, that when the game starts, Nebraska desperately needs a good start today.
Gary Sharp with us. He is in Akron, and we are here at the Single Barrel, Nebraska-Wisconsin. It is funny, isn't it, with the amount of accountability that's been preached, and I appreciate that. And you've seen it work with Matt Rule where he's been, and this is the only stop where he hasn't gone full-blown youth movement in year 2 at some point, or might be the latest point in his tenure to go youth movement if he does. But you're right. He tried to have it be player-led, and maybe they aren't ready for that responsibility, because you've got this mix of old that haven't won, and, oh, here we go again, that mentality. You've got the young that may not be mature, or some of them have their own issues with facing adversity because they've never faced it before. Maybe a quarterback, right? How do you respond to criticism and kind of a funk that you've been in? And meanwhile, I loved his comment, Rules, on Thursday, as, well, the players think it's Sat's fault, so it isn't on me. Well, Dana's in to let him know that, no, it's all of our faults, but here's how we fix it. And if you don't do what I tell you, you're out. So finally, there's been a change, to your point. I just fear that between the USC loss, how dejecting that was, because they tried to give it to you, and then the emotion of this week with not only the change But I think it's just how well have they practiced? It's not even a distraction thing. It's like what's their motivation level to go out and give her one more great week of practice? I mean, that's my thing. How well have they practiced this week to even be ready? The only problem is Wisconsin may be in the same boat with just their morale part. And morale's very real this weekend in about an hour and a half, or I should say an hour, for both these schools with their locker room.
Yeah, and we've all three of us have talked about this. You're also, as we get towards the end of the regular season, there's also that 105 that's staring you in the face.
Yeah.
And so there are guys on the roster that are like, man, am I going to be here next year? I mean, it's almost like the last two games are an open tryout for the guys that want to be coached hard and respond. And I think there are plenty of them in this program. It's just, I don't know. I'm glad that Rule is done with being the sermonizing guy, because I felt a different vibe on Thursday. All business. We're not here to mess around. We got to win a football game. And I don't care about people's feelings anymore, because you know what? My ass is on the line as well. I mean, I got to perform. I'm not going to lose my job, but I got to perform, because this isn't how we want to live. So you're right. What button has he pushed this week, and what guys respond to be ready to go when kickoff happens here in about an hour? Because Wisconsin, we can look and say, Wisconsin's got two of their better players that are out. They just fired their OC. Who knows what their locker room is like? Maybe guys on offense now are like, oh man, Luke Fickell for the first time at Wisconsin is going to run an offense that he wants to run. Smash mouth football. Let's go into Lincoln. Let's beat them again, and let's keep that Freedom Trophy, and let's go to a bowl game. I think it's an interesting clash. But don't you guys think that if maybe you get up or behind by 2 touchdowns, that might be the difference in today's game on how the rest of the game flows?
I think it's tap out time. You get up, the other side might be willing to just say uncle.
Especially you look at, well, okay, we got one more game next week. Nebraska's side, you can't say that. I mean, you got to go to Iowa City. Wisconsin, they got a home game against Minnesota. I don't know. It's just, I think this is Rule and Fickell are going to meet at midfield, and I don't even know where they start their conversation about their 2 years at the.
What are you drinking? That's the conversation. What are you drinking?
And I guess we find out today. We find out not who is the best X's and O's among them. We find out who is the best motivator.
It's Gary Sharp with us here, a pregame edition, Hail Varsity Radio, getting you geared up for Nebraska and Wisconsin. And Gary, with that in mind, we're looking for guys that are going to have a response, guys that are gonna, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of take some things personally and get the best version out of themselves. Who do you trust more when this game kicks off? If you talk about the importance of a hot start, do you give the ball to your offense, or do you send your defense out there and trust that they're going to get you a stop?
I would trust my defense. I think guys, they've had some issues on the back end. It's well documented, but I would send my defense out there. I will tell you, the guy that will lay it on the line today will be Ty Robinson. There is no doubt that this game is all about Ty Robinson. He came back to go to a bowl game. He thought he was going to be already making plans to go a bowl game a month ago. This is the last time he plays in Memorial Stadium. Remember, guys, the first time a Nebraska coaching staff sent their entire staff to go visit a high school recruit was Ty Robinson. That was Scott Frost. He's been here a long time. He is balled out, okay? And today is his day. I would turn it over to the Ty Robinson defense and say, you guys set the tone. But you got to remember, I mean, if this game is played in a phone booth, can Nebraska win? Or does Nebraska need to get out and get fancy and let her rip and play loose and free on the offensive side of the ball, which I think with another game under Dana, they may feel more comfortable to do it that way.
I think they can play and win a phone booth game. I mean, they've been in it before. I go back to the Rutgers adjustment, right? And you've got the personnel. You'll need to use it. And I'm thinking of Van Poppel. Don't save him. If you have to pull the trigger and use him, please do it. Sharpie, we've got a few minutes left. Interested to get your reaction to last night at CHI. I was all wet. I thought Creighton had drilled Nebraska. Instead, it was instead it was all Big Red, man. They were incredible. What are you laughing at me about?
Because you said you were all wet, and then it cut out there for a moment. I'm like, whoa. Hey, HailOnlyFans.com.
Something like that. Something needs to go well.
So I thought last night, okay, so Fred has made an adjustment where, they used to run up and down the floor. He looks at his athleticism and says, you know what? We're not as athletic as we've been. In the Big Ten, you got to make some shots because this is a make or miss sport, but you also got to guard. And so he has slowed this team down, and they're good in guarding. And you know what? He went right back to the well. Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. It's 2 times in a row that Fred Hoiberg has won in Omaha with the same plan on Kalkbrenner. Man in front, man in the back. You got to stick to that. And then you got to pray to God that Creighton doesn't hit shots. They did the same thing in Lincoln last year. Shireman hit shots. They did the same thing last night. Creighton didn't hit shots. Nebraska stuck to the plan. They never let Creighton back into the game. I thought it was a magnificent night by Fred Hoiberg and Nate Lesnar to stick with the game plan and not deviate. And guys, they never trailed. And there were GBR chants. That has to mean something for today, right? So that we can all say, this is why we have nice things.
Leg 2 of your ultimate sports weekend. You drill Creighton, you beat Wisconsin, you sweep Wisconsin in volleyball.
And then tonight you beat the guy that is from Goonies that is coaching Wisconsin volleyball.
Yep.
Ooh. Wow. Hey, you guys. Man, that's pretty good. Right now, you got a 4th and 1 and a wide open catch. Ohio State's going to name their score here, man.
Yep. This is going to be, unfortunately for Indiana, this is going to be the end. They couldn't afford to get blown out like this.
Yep.
And
it didn't have to be that way.
Now it becomes, is the SEC going to get a 5th team, or is the Big 12 or the ACC going to sneak in an extra?
Well, we'll see.
Well, Florida's in trouble.
Yes.
This is in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Georgia's only up 31-21.
Really?
Yep. Against UMass. UMass with Marcus Camby.
And who was the guy who went to Detroit? You had Camby and Roy. Son of a gun. Loved him.
Yeah.
Lou.
Lou Rowe.
Lou Rowe. Yeah.
Yes.
Camby and Lou Rowe.
Yeah.
Look at you pulling the old Final squad. Best team money could buy, man.
Today is the day that you can breathe a sigh of relief. I think Nebraska finds a way to win this game no matter how. They have to win. I don't know that Nebraska is great when they have to play in desperation mode, but I think that they are the better team today, and they will find a way even to win by 1 point. It could be 2 years ago, 15-14, and instead of a celebration, it might be more of a sigh of relief. But I think this is a huge week for Nebraska that has got to be backed up with a victory.
Gary, you talked about Ty Robinson leading from the front defensively today. Who's your guy offensively that leads from the front? Is it Raiola? Because he hasn't been at his best over the past couple weeks.
It's supposed to be.
You worry about the injuries. I mean, we saw a better day from Emmett Johnson last week. Who's the guy, in your opinion, that needs to lead this offense?
Elijah, great question. I'm not going to give you one guy. I'm going to give you 5 guys. I think this is the day that the offensive line, because remember, all they hear is Wisconsin, offensive line, defensive line. This is the first time that I can say this in a while. I think Nebraska's defensive line with the front line and the depth is better than Wisconsin's offensive line. We don't usually say that, but I think the 5 up front are the reason why Nebraska wins today on offense.
Any feel at all with Colorado, Kansas? Any locks of the weekend?
Man, Lance Leipold, Billy Napier, their seasons were going south. One was going to lose his job. They did a great job of keeping their team together. Florida is battling today with Ole Miss. Lance Leipold is still eligible to become bowl eligible. Yeah. I think they hang in there today. I think they battle with Colorado. I think it goes down to the last play. I actually think for the 3rd straight week, KU knocks off a ranked team.
They're hot. They're playing good. They're healthy, and they're getting quarterback play. They're scoring points. And that was impressive out there in Provo last weekend. They get a sold-out Arrowhead today as they revamp their stadium. Last thought, Sharpie, we'll let you get ready for hoops. What time do you tip off? What time are you guys?
4 o'clock here in the Eastern time zone.
Okay, good for you. You can hear Gary Sharp, of course, all season long with UNO basketball.
No one's listening to me today. Everybody's going to be watching the Husker game. I will be watching the Husker game.
And there's another three. There's another three by the Mavs, but no, I like the take on the offensive line. I think it's a good day for the Nebraska run game if they get the win.
Emmett Johnson, here's a bold prediction. Emmett Johnson goes over 10-plus carries. Heinrich Haarberg carries 3 or more times.
I think I want to see more Haarberg, especially in the red zone. Does Dana dust that off?
Well, Wisconsin they've been a little leaky with the quarterback run game.
Okay. All right. Prediction, my friend.
17-14 Nebraska. Of all the things this year, the difference is a field goal by John Hull, who kind of has flown under the radar because we were ready to boot him out and have him take his coach with him. Now he actually looks like there's some stability there, and you start thinking, wow, next year, is that already your place kicker? I think his foot is the difference. And did you already hear what happened at Memorial Stadium? He's out there warming up with a specialist, and somebody pulled you remember the Travis Kelce, Justin Tucker thing last year in the playoffs where they got into a little dust-up? A Wisconsin player came along and kicked the ball away from Hull. You don't mess with John Hull. You don't mess with the prayer. You don't mess with our kicker. And today you don't mess with Nebraska. 17-14 Nebraska.
Love it. Gary Sharp with us, the Iron Horse. Hail Varsity, weekend edition, KFOR, KFORnow.com. Sharpie, we appreciate you, brother.
Hey, love
Thank
you
you for
guys.
jumping on.
All right, have a great day, everybody.
We'll get it rocking. A little Average Joe tomorrow at 10:30 Central. Should be pretty good for the folks that love the Sunday Live.
Let me get your take, Schmidt. We got about 90 seconds left here. If it's a close game, do you have confidence that Nebraska can go out there and get a win? Gary does. I don't know if I do.
It's got to happen at some point on Senior Day, doesn't it?
Well, as you kind of said, I think Nebraska has to be in control of this football game if they're going to go win it.
If Nebraska's going to win, it's going to be by double digits today.
I concur. I am with you on that. I don't believe that Nebraska in a close ball game has the, dare I say, the cojones to go out there and go do it.
I think Wisconsin's a bit of a mess, but they just have done it. They haven't done it this year, but they've done it in the past to this team. But come find us here at the Single Barrel. We'll be here for Real Red Reaction, powered by your friends at Slim Chickens. Elijah will be in for that. Are you on site for that, Big Cat?
No, I'll be here in studio.
Okay. So I'll be here, the Single Barrel. Pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman will join us. Do we have Motzi and Will? Who else is on the crew tonight? You're like, I don't know. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for coming by the Single Barrel. Back here after Nebraska, Wisconsin with KFOR, KFORnow.com.